Hey guys, what's this? Well, here's a hint. Yeep. Yeah, it's one of those. But we're gonna focus on this right now. And I need a little of this. Yeah. So, a few people were wanting me to kind of give my idea of the story of what was going on in the game. Because, yeah, it's a little confusing. More than a little confusing. It's really confusing. I mean, completely ignoring the bonus level, which was even more confusing than all the other confusings put together. I don't know, insert Buddhist here? Whatever. So, actually I think I'm going to have to move this down a little bit so I can see all the buttons. Okay. You couldn't even tell because you're looking at a black screen right now. Although it seems to be flickering the mouse cursor for some reason. Just a second. Okay, just had to make sure it wasn't like making a bajillion blank files on my desktop, because it does that sometimes. Every once in a while, not often. So, let's start off, okay? Starting things off, we have, in the first chapter, the guy goes into space to defend his homeworld from the Bavka. Alright. Apparently, Dukas is kind of an icy, cold place. So, we got a snowball. There's Dukas. Let's kinda fill it in there. Kinda cold, kinda icy, probably has some grassy areas and down around the equator. And they shoot the Path Defender up to sort of guard against the Bavka, so he is their shield. We're at the obvious stuff right now. And because you always see shields with crosses on them, there you go. I don't think there's any Christian imagery in this, just Buddhist, but whenever I picture a kite shield, I always picture a cross on it. Blame Diablo too. Darn you, Paladin! Okay, so that was pretty straightforward. He's scared and pretty confused as to what's going on in space, and he doesn't understand it. Hence, the first thing he gets is the fear point. Yeah. Because basically, when you're defending in this particular universe, you're manifesting the force of will on the path, which is, say, this here is the third dimension. This is what we're in. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Height, depth, and width. And then you get hyperspace. This is all something extra. So here's the path. This is just like the very first path. Alright, let's undo that. The first path was kinda wavy. And this is cutting between these, so instead of when you want to go from here to here, instead of having to travel the distance that way and that way, you can cut across this imaginary or invisible dimension here, and it's a lot faster. Although it's not something we can perceive in our universe. So anyway, this is just covering what the path is. But Path Defender is even one step above the hyperspace, Because when we're looking at hyperspace, we're looking down on it, and it's a flat line to us. And the ships are just puttering along, and they're not even going that fast to us because we're perceiving the entire length of their journey. And we can see the whole length. There's fixed lines. And who knows how chaotic it is for them and their ships, but yeah, it's not a big deal to us and to just watch it and set up our defenses. Like, say, a courage point. Yay, courage point. Gotta add some squiggles in here. There you go, courage point. So, courage point that looks kind of like it has a duck inside of it is shooting from the, I guess this would be the 5th dimension, down onto the 4th dimension as they travel across it, cutting through to get from whatever planet Bavka looks like. We never got to see it. I'm just going to assume it's red because the Bavka were red. So they're going from there to there along the path. And this is like really a super long distance, but it's a very short distance by hyperspace. And the Bavka were, as you saw in the beginning, we were abusing this to launch attacks all over the place. And apparently nobody else has this technology. Not really. But the people of Dukas are really the people of the Roberta. The people that made that guy that kept making obstacle courses or training courses. Developed the Path Defenders, and the people of Dukas borrowed that technology to send their own Path Defender into space to defend Dukas here, our little snowball with a green belt. Anyway, so he's scared and dealing with all that in Chapter 1. And Ah is there and kind of holds his hand. They make friends as much as you can make friends with someone like Ah, who belittling you. He did totally save our bacon at that point, so you gotta give him credit where it's due. But as we discover later in the game, people in this kind of space tend to kind of go crazy because of complete and total utter isolation. Because they're incorporeal and no longer able to interact with anyone on the physical plane outside of however the people at that place communicated with the ghost once or twice. I know at the end of Chapter 1 they said good job and we can't bring you back yet. And then throughout Chapter 2, our the wife character also sent some messages like, what are you doing way over there helping Ah? You shouldn't be helping them, they're cultists. So that's basically the only interaction we got. And I could see the ghost getting pretty darn isolated because of that. So, a little crazy. So, at the end of Chapter 2, add some stars too. In Chapter 2, the Bavka, with the help of Ah, that is, the big A. Big A. There you go. Big, fancy looking A. To blow the heck out of Dukas. And as far as we know, that should be it. We should be dead, but we're not. But shortly into Chapter 3, it's revealed to us that we're not dead, because they took our body to an asteroid. Although this later gets undermined by the fact that we discover that the ghost is going crazy. Oh, I don't want a bright yellow asteroid. There we go. Asteroid. And let's make some craters on said asteroid. Because I like illustrating. So, they apparently have a tiny base on an asteroid. That's basically the thing going down in Chapter 3. Meanwhile, the leaders of the Bavka totally blew the heck out of themselves. Well, we killed one, and the other one nuked himself, basically. Destroyed himself along with Dukas. So, Dukas is gone, as far as we know, and the Bavka had no leader. And it was a lengthy span of time between then and now, and Ah had time to take it over. And see, as I recall, we started trying to, well, as is her motivation throughout the game, Granddaughter was telling us to punish Bavka and though mostly Bavka. She's basically, as far as I could tell, until later at least, kind of a manifestation of conflict, because the whole reason we were put up into this place is to deal with the Bavka. And cut off from what very little contact we had, we basically have our orders to go on, which was deal with the Bavka. And with no Bavka to deal with, we need somebody to give us new orders. And she gives us new orders, and she tells us that just because they're under Oz rule now doesn't mean they're not Bavka. That's the gist of it as far as I understood it. I mean, take what you will from the story. It seems that it leaves a lot, a lot for the viewer's discretion, which is neat. Make up your own story based on what you viewed. So, Chapter 3 was defending the. This is 1. This is 2. This is 3. Although I could do a better job with 2 other than a giant A. We could enlarge that. Like. We got Dukas here. And then. No. Come on. Don't give me that. Control A. There we go. And then we got bits of Dukas up here. That's kind of how it looked, right? Off the planet. Can't have that. And really the atmosphere should be visible too, blasting off into space, so... snowy atmosphere. It's a nice planet. And the explosion happened somewhere around there. Path space, the ghost is freaking out. We never even find out his name, it's just Ghost. And is leaving, triumphant. Ghost is probably reeling at this point. And is basically sure that Ghost is dead at this point. Is made certified by a lopsided A. That's also 2. So thinks he's the winner. There you go. And is the loser here. We don't need... Nothing happens to the asteroid because we defend it. Successfully defended the asteroid. Although we do kill at the end of it, I recall, so... Oh, no, we don't kill we kill the grave ship that held his body. As he sent basically every single one of his followers at us, and we killed all of them. That's a lot of corpses floating around in hyperspace. Around an asteroid that probably doesn't have anything on it. Which is kind of creepy. It's a ghost asteroid now. So, throughout Chapter 2, you could kind of see going off the rails. And really, as I understand it, the beginning of the end for Path Defenders is when the turning point shows up. You saw drop it in Chapter 1. And the ghost drops it in Chapter 2. That's the turning point. You notice how it looks more than a little crazy, yeah? So, I mean, I'm willing to stand by that theory, because that does seem to be the point where people start going off the rails. We're not, I mean, and Ghost are really the only 2 Path Defenders we have any extended contact with or share any time on the path with. I mean, we did see that guy in Hexspace, but he wasn't a Path Defender at that point. He was something else. I'm not quite sure what. Anyway, Chapter 4 deals with... Basically, they're trying... The people inside Ghost's head are recolonizing Dukas. Clearly you see that Ghost and other Path Defenders can't actually see the physical universe anymore. Which is another thing isolating them even further from reality. Because if he could see it, he could see that Dukas has been annihilated. Like, blown clean in half. There's no colonizing that, but... inside his head... Anyway, so, the people of Chapter 4... There were 6 chapters, weren't there? We were helping the Bavka rebel against at some point. And then we were killing those same Bavka in the next chapter. And then the crazy future Bavka were attacking us. So, yeah, I think that's 6. So 4 is... Oh, that's the wrong tool. Paintbrush. 4 is helping the rebels, so... Rebelling against what's left of Ah, or just Os? Which was the planet Ah was defending. Because, I mean, even if Ah is gone, Os is still there, right? That would make sense to me, so... Let's get the circle tool out. And we're helping Bavka. For some reason, I picture Oz world as purple and kind of small. So we're letting them rebel against them at this point, even though some time ago they were trying to pretty much conquer everything. Times change, and now they pretty much control everything, thanks to Ah, who is now defunct, along with pretty much everyone who was part of his worshipping cult. And the paths at this point are a lot more complex. So it's like... We're dealing with ships going this way. Basically buying them time so they could deal with whatever defenders were still there and then launch their own counterattack, which Os had no way to defend against because they didn't have a path defender anymore. Because although Ah wasn't dead, he left. No, I'm pretty sure all that happened. Stuff that doesn't involve what happened on Dukas was real. The Bavka we know were real because that's the whole reason we wound up in path space in the first place. And Os is real because Ah was helping us at the first chapter, and Ah was helping us, and in the second chapter, people who were pretty sure weren't hallucinations were telling us we shouldn't be helping people from Os because they're all cultists. Wife and / or daughter, I forget which. Time passed very quickly. And, I mean, even at that point, when Ghost learned that his wife died, he didn't even seem to bat an eye. Although he had no eye to bat, nor any way to express his emotions, but his towers didn't seem to reflect any sadness, like there weren't a bunch of fear towers in the next level. He was just completely detached at that point, and the fact that his wife was dead didn't cause him any grief. And I can understand that if you've been completely isolated from someone for 40 or 50 years, I'd be... Even if you did like him a lot, after that freaking long, you'd be over it too. Especially if you weren't allowed to communicate with them in any way. Thank you, military. Great job driving the Ghost over the frickin' deep end. So, Ghost left to his own devices in hyperspace with no corporeal body and nothing to do once the war was over except sit there and watch Pathspace float by for years at a time, jumping from place to place, watching hyperspace and who knows what. Kinda, his mental state pretty much deteriorates. And by chapter 3 or 4, he's pretty much completely gone. By the end game, he is completely and totally out there. And the entire fight with future Bavka might have gone on entirely inside his head. What was left of his head. What was left of his mind, that is to say. And at that point, you could even go so far as to say what happened in the hidden chapter at the end was also part of the game. I mean, the whole Buddhist thing aside, I could sorta... I mean, no, not aside. No, include that. Because, I mean, you got the whole reincarnation thing going. You could put a positive spin on it. Maybe when a Path Defender goes away, they have to go through there. And when they make it through there, then they are born again. Like, reincarnated. Because they're basically giving up everything. Absolutely everything to defend their home, their people, their friends, their family, and including the fact that even after the war is over and they've done what they needed to do, they can't go back and see the people they were there to defend. And I have to say, that's a pretty huge sacrifice. It's a massive sacrifice. Basically condemning yourself not even to death, to a freaking eternity of complete and total isolation and descending into madness. And that's pretty extreme. I know I haven't been illustrating it, but I think my head's going faster than my hand can draw. So we could go so far as to say the last chapter was completely inside the ghost's head. Entirely. And the second to last chapter, Granddaughter, was completely inside Ghost's head. And his mission, which was to defend Dukas from everything, originally from the Bavka, was the only thing keeping him going at that point, because he had nothing left, and nobody left, because Path Defenders were going left and right, as we were informed, because the wars were finishing and Path Defenders were finding out they couldn't leave. And I suppose not all of them had the will Ghost had, so they were going crazy and doing whatever it is Ah did. And just going away. But Ghost hung around. If we're to believe what he said in his head, or what the apparition of the Bavka said, and and this is just assuming that the Bavka live, say, on average 100-year lifespan, then he would have been defending the shell of Dukas for 2,500 years, at least, if that was the 25th generation of 25th generation of Corybantes. So he had plenty of time to go crazy. And people have gone crazy in isolation a lot faster than that. He had to have been well over the deep end before that happened. So I'm gonna say his journey through Hexspace was kinda his way to be reborn, I'd say. Because if you can make your will manifest on a plane under yourself, that is a path defender making defenders in hyperspace, then couldn't they make some sort of incarnation of themselves, like, say, a child in normal space? Where? I don't know. Earth? We don't really know what the people of Dukas... I mean, we got glimpses of them and they looked mostly human. Perhaps they were descendants of Earthlings. Could have been on Oss, or... I forget what planet the Bavka were from. But it could have been there too. What planet was that? Give me a minute. Alright guys, back here for Confused. Game concepts. Space and path space chooses to hyperspace what hyperspace is in normal space. So like I said, fifth dimension over fourth dimension over third dimension. With traveling through hyperspace, currently the only known occupants of path space are path defenders. Other forms of life exist. These are your will within path space. Bavka Empire is host to a hostile spacefaring power recently stranded in your galaxy, plotting its conquest. Bavka are noted for their experimentation with genetic engineering, cloning, which makes them reproduce asexually. Bavka look alike, and there are no female Bavka. My goodness. Roberta are a slave race which came with the Bavka from their home galaxy. Their function as their engineering corps, they are a crafty race, and it's their defection to your side that gave your galaxy a weapon of path defense, which the Bavka were unable to control and use. Although they seem to prefer you to the Bavka, their ultimate plans are unknown. Dukas is your homeworld, a vacation planet known for its lush natural beauty. Luxury items, its very few defensive capabilities against a Bavka. Cleared a strategic target by the Bavka due to its location. You are the only defense against this threat. Indra's Net. A net which binds all beings according to Roberta theology. Indra's Net pervades through not only path space, but through all of space. It is Indra's Net which allows people in path space to contact with normal space, hyperspace, and yet other spaces. It's theological research into the nature of Indra's Net that led to the development of path space technology. And then we're getting into the other less helpful things. So points, turning point. The even madness. Resists reason and is not afraid of experimentation, of taking bizarre chances, and of trying anything in order to break and advance. As such, it is limited in its effectiveness, but under the right circumstances, even madness has its method. Like I said, turning point is where the path defenders start going crazy. I've been going on about this stuff for about 40 minutes. Well, that's kind of depressing. Oh, that's what the Nightmare does. It's a zig engine. Sort of. Well, anyway, guys. Like I said, I've been going on about this stuff for like 40 minutes now. And I guess I've kind of got my point across. Sort of. Like I said, there's a lot of room for your own interpretation and, you know, what you think. But hey, feel free to tell me your own theories. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm actually interested to see what you guys think. I was gonna ask about it on the Immortal Defense forums, but it looks like the last post was back in 2011. So, not going to hold out any hope there. Hey, but at least the store still works. You can still buy the game. And that's something at least. Well, take care, y'all. I'll see you later.